All right, that is such a tough presentation to follow. Thank you for all that you do. So yeah, I have to get my mind right now. So I'm thrilled to be here. This is one of the ways I love to give back. And it is true, adults do have temper tantrums. Boy, do they have temper tantrums. And so what I'd like to share with you this evening is a lot that I've learned, and also content that has been shared generously with me from some former students of mine at Columbia. So we're going to be talking about kind of the gap between school, university, and the real world. So very quickly about me, because I want to get into the good stuff. So as Alma said, I'm a lecturer here at Columbia. I've been a professor for 16 years. And I've been I call myself an academic. I'm a practicing communications professional and an academic. I've been in corporate for 30 years. I've worked across business verticals, and I also work across communication disciplines. I love what I do. I love teaching. I love sharing knowledge. And I am a forever student as well. I learned when I was at Ernst & Young, do not take your BlackBerry out in a meeting. Yes, I had a BlackBerry. Do not take that BlackBerry out or your phone, modern day equivalent, in a meeting, for anything. Just don't do it. I learned when I was at Growy, when you had budget, spend it before the second half. Because if you didn't spend it before the second half, that money would go away. Well, I never heard of that before, but they would take money back. I also learned at another company, do not drink anything besides wine, no hard alcohol or liquor in front of the partners. Okay, I was grateful that I learned these lessons. So as I've also navigated my own career and teaching here at Columbia, I have learned that there is a lot of unwritten rules that we learn on the job. We can prepare you as best we can. If you've taken a class with me, I'm forever saying, why should we care? Now here's what this looks like in the real world. Like, what does this really mean to us? So I really try to take that theory and give the practical application. So I'm going to take you through some insights, and then I really encourage you to bombard me with questions, because I really want to answer them. So, how many of you consider yourselves to be Gen Z? Okay. How many of you work with other Gen Z members? How many of you manage Gen Z members? Okay, awesome. So I invite you. This might be applicable and relevant from a couple of different angles. So it may help you manage those Gen Z team members. It might help you work better with fellow Gen Z team members. And it also might give you some insight on, if you start to recognize some of your own patterns in the insights that I'm going to share, it will help you understand how you might appear to someone else. So, when I was looking at them, I thought that I was working hard with my BlackBerry, and that, I was making the best use of time in the meeting. I didn't realize how disrespectful it looked. So when we are racing to get things done, and someone says, well, slow down, like you're rushing and you're not doing a good job at it. So there's something to be said for that self-awareness. So again, I invite you to take all this info and apply it as you see fit. So I strive to be a good manager, and I think that, having led teams for a long time, I think I'm pretty good at it, but I was completely unprepared for my first day at Cody, which is a big beauty company. And I was doing my meet and greets with my team, and someone sat down in my chair and burst into tears. And oh my goodness, this is day one, this is too much for me to handle, why is she crying already? I realized, I learned that before I started, she had been on board for maybe a month. No one talked to her. No one told her what to do. She had no job description. She came in, she sat at her desk, She was on, she was like scrolling the internet and just had no idea what to do. And she was ready to leave. And I'm thinking, they had this very capable, I hope she's very capable, I'm not so sure because she's crying in my office on the first day. This young woman who's just crying because she hadn't been given any direction. And it dawned on me like, okay, well, this is her first job. She needs that direction. So, I'm going to go very quickly into some demographics about Gen Z. This is research that I did. All these studies come out all the time of ways of working, for any reason. And I'm going to get into actually what I learned in my own research. So, what do we know about Gen Z? They're known for being resourceful, independent learners, value diversity and inclusive culture, and place a priority on well-being and mental health in the workplace. Does that sound about right? Yeah, okay, important to us. They also want flexibility, and this is becoming more and more an issue as companies are looking at return to work policy. Return to office. I hate saying return to work because people are still working when they're remote. They're returning to office. But they want flexibility, and young professionals entering the workforce now, that's kind of all they've known, right? They've only known either hybrid or remote. So they prioritize that work-life balance, that you can have a side gig, a side hustle, doing anything that helps them to make time for hobbies and other things outside of work. Where previous generations, you lived to work instead of working to live. Thank goodness, this next generation or wave of professionals says, no, that's not good enough. So they do value that remote and hybrid work and flexible schedules. And the option to work remotely is really becoming more and more non-negotiable. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next year or so, people coming back to the office or being mandated back to the office. But it's pretty well understood that at least for young professionals, there's a bit of resistance to be able to come back. So why do I even talk about this type of flexibility in this research? Well, if you are managing someone or you are someone and you want that flexibility and you have someone a bit older, different generation than you, what do you think they might think? If you want to work from home or you want to work remotely, like, well, I didn't do that. Why do you want to do that? Why can't you just come to the office? So there's a real disconnect in understanding. What else do they want? What else do you want? You want engagement. So this is from Sprout Social, which I'm sure many of you know. 57% of 18 to 20-year-olds that participated in the survey said they like seeing how employees post about their company. They want to know that people are happy to be there. That's important to them. And then 60% also believe that they feel more connected to a brand when employees share. So, now we're in the world of influencers. When I started in my career, influencers were still editors and journalists. Those were the original influencers. But now we're looking to see, what do they say on Glassdoor? And who else is talking about this company? And what do they say about the company? Do I find myself relating to it? Do I see people that look like me, that have the same ideals that I do? Can I see myself fitting in? So culture has become more and more important. So what does that look like on the flip side? We're picky. We're discerning. Right? But these are things that we care about. A couple other things that we are looking for. This stuff is important. Okay, so again, if you recognize it in yourself, someone you work with, or someone who comes to you. Meaningful work. They prioritize work that aligns with personal values and contributes to a larger cause or a larger purpose. I've always believed that team members need to understand their part to the whole. Even if someone's job is putting together press kits, you can do that anymore, or making spreadsheets, or something that looks like the most administrative, boring as anything task. Why? Why are they doing this? How different does it feel when you know, okay, well, I'm putting together these press kits. It's for the biggest event we've ever had, that we're expecting, 1,000 people and all the success to come out of it. And this is a really important part. So meaningful work is creating that next level of understanding and helping them to see how their contributions contribute to the greater good of the company, the greater good of the team, or perhaps even the greater good, depending. Diversity and inclusion. Speaking of workplaces that embrace diversity and foster inclusive environments. Okay? I think we can all agree that's become more and more important, more and more on the radar, thank goodness. I did DE&I communications 25 years ago when I was at Ernst & Young, before it became a big thing on many people's radars, as it should be. But these are things that are kind of non-negotiables for us now. Entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial and interested in creating their own business. Who has their own business? That's it? Who has a little side business? Who has dreams of their own business? Okay, there we go, thank you. I knew you were there somewhere. Okay, and finally, professional growth, looking for careers that offer opportunities for learning and career advancement. So interesting, I don't even remember if this made it, no, I don't think it made it into the deck because I saw it this morning and I promised Alma I'd get my presentation done by 2:30 and I'm forever tweaking. But there was another survey that just came out. It's an article in Fools, I think, but it was talking about why money and growth were so important to the young professional. Because things are more expensive than they've ever been. And if a company is not going to take care of them or us, we need to advocate for it ourselves. So it was a really interesting study looking at professional growth, money, rewards. So if someone's not going to be rewarded, we're not stuck. Years ago, we worked in a job for X number of years, hoping to get promoted, waiting to get that recognition, and when we didn't get it, we would feel frustrated. But maybe not take action so quickly or drastically. Today, the opportunity that's out there, I'm out of here. I'm not feeling rewarded, right? I'm not feeling seen. I'm not feeling recognized for my efforts. So what does that look like to someone who has grown up at a different time? They just joined, they want to get promoted tomorrow. They're they're not even thinking about the work that they need to do. They've got their eye on, 5 steps in front of them. Sound familiar? Have you either experienced that yourself or seen that on a team? Yeah, okay. So there's a reason why, okay? Oh yes, I did. Okay, I snuck it in there, Alma, before my deadline. So also what we're seeing is that these young professionals are carving their own path. So 83%, wow, of Gen Zers that responded to this survey said that they consider themselves to be job hoppers, that they took a dynamic approach to their careers that often involves frequent job changes. So what that means is, they're going to show me the money, jumping from one to the next, as long as they're seeing growth, as long as they're seeing better rewards and more financial security. So why is this so important? Well, it's important as you manage these professionals that they're a flight risk if they don't feel rewarded or compensated properly, or at least shown the path for growth. So even if they can't be promoted tomorrow or as quickly as they'd like, knowing that that's important to them is going to really support you in managing them, in working with them, and also in advocating for yourself. So you may not be on a growth path for a promotion in a year, But you also know, okay, well, I still need to see the path of growth. So that helps you have the conversation with someone that perhaps doesn't understand either how important it is or thinks that you might be impatient, right? Again, I think that this type of knowledge and knowing how something might be perceived is really quite valuable. So they are focused on the two things that will help them be secure in this economy, and that is growth, upward momentum, and salary. Questions so far? I see nods, that's good. I take silence as a great one too, so just know that. Okay, so when I was asked, I actually presented a version of this at the conference board. Has anyone heard of that? Yeah, okay. So I presented a version of this at the conference board, and it was a group of very senior communications leaders. So I was talking to them a little bit differently than we're talking together now. But in addition to the research that I just showed you, which really anyone can find, I wanted to find the good, the bad, the ugly, the real stuff. So I reached out to maybe 50. I call them my forever students because if you're in my class, I hope you're my forever student. So I reached out to 50 of them and I said, tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. What did you learn? What did you wish you learned? And what is there no way you could have learned it at Columbia and you needed to learn on the job? So what I'm showing you next is directly from them, and then some of my own interpretation from them there, but from students that once sat in your seats not too long ago. Okay. So here's some things that they said they learned and that were very, very valuable to them in the StratCom program. Number one is thinking strategically, and especially crisis communication. If you're thinking of studying crisis communication, no better time, because in this year, are you studying crisis comms? Yeah, okay. This year, juicy. I like crisis comms. It's smart. I think I'm just a glutton for punishment, but it's really smart communication. You use all of your tools in your toolkit. They also know that which platforms are most impactful. So in several classes, I know we go through all digital platforms and what's the platform of the moment and where should we advertise, who are we reaching through which channel. And I hope we're also learning how to be discerning of just because it's out there and it's cool doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for your business or reputation goal. So we're learning to be a little more discerning. How to create a strategic plan to expand the business and support reputation. Everyone's taken strategic communication management. Hold on to those books. That is maybe one of the most practical classes you will ever take at Columbia. I see people, C-suite, well, maybe not C-suite, but close, that still don't know how to do a proper strategic plan. Learning how to do a strategic plan and using everything that you learned, the facts, how are you going to accomplish it, how are you going to measure it, what's it going to cost, all of that helps you speak the language of business to business people, because unfortunately, we're not getting those business people to speak the language of communication, so we have to educate them a bit. Really valuable. How to create clear, streamlined communications, assets, and reports. Okay, so here we have some things we learned and some things that we haven't learned. So number one, we know when you leave university, you're well versed in technical and theoretical aspects of the broad range of communication disciplines. However, if you haven't done it hands-on, knowledge of specific tools, or working in the workplace, or perhaps a company's way of using a specific tool, that could impact your readiness when you're starting a new job. So I almost put up a picture of one of my family recipes. So my family recipes, typical Italian, it's a list of ingredients. You're lucky if all the ingredients are on there and it's not skipping a couple. You're lucky if you could read the handwriting of my sister or my grandmother who wrote it down. It's a list of ingredients. There's no way you can possibly make something that's really, really complicated with this list of ingredients unless you've done it. I learned the hard way the first time I tried to make something, and I had to remember, like, this list of ingredients isn't helping me. I had to remember when I sat there young, watching my grandmother do it. So I said, all right, Grandma, let me know when I'm screwing this one up. But it just reminded me of how critically important it is to have that hands-on experience, and that you don't truly know until you're hands-on. So I hope who's doing internships? Yep, throw up. Okay, who wants to do internships? Okay, do your internships. Just advice, do those internships. You get fantastic experience. Even if you find out what you don't want to do, that's just as valuable as knowing what you want to do. What else have we learned? Communication, teamwork, problem solving, working with like-minded peers. If I had a nickel for every time someone made a face at me when I gave a group assignment, I'd be really rich. Right? You hate group assignments. You hate us when we give group assignments. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Because when you're doing a group assignment, what do you learn? Aside from, maybe someone could be annoying. What do you learn when you do a group assignment? Collaboration. Give it to me real. What do you learn?
How to manage expectations.
How to manage expectations. Why? Because someone may not show up for a meeting, they didn't do their part of it that you were expecting them to, or they didn't spend enough time on it that they should have, right? So you learn to be disappointed. What else do you learn?
You learn to let go, not be so controlling.
Oh, if you're lucky, yes, you learn to let go. Like, I could have done a better job, or I thought I was in charge of this and this person's not. So you're also learning transfer of power. When to let go, when to say, you know what, this is not the hill to die on. You do you on this part of it. What else do you learn? Accountability, yeah. You don't want to let down your teammates and your team members, right? You all want a good grade. Okay, Brittany.
How to work with different skill sets.
Yeah, okay. If you're lucky, you get to learn how to work with different skill sets. And I say if you're lucky, because we're all communications students and professionals, right? We have something in common. So we at least know we're working on teams with other communication professionals. Someone might be better at digital, someone might be better at earned media, someone might be a PR whiz, someone might be, a social biz, but we still kind of speak each other's language, right? What we don't get to learn as much here is working across departments. So, you might have a project with other, but you're taking the same class, you've all heard the same instructions, you're working off the same rubric. Working in a company where you don't have rubrics, you don't have the same level of understanding, and especially if you walk into a team where marketing thinks that they're better than communications, or they hold the budget and communications doesn't, or human resources has a part in it, and everyone, so imagine within your own team, people kind of fighting for power. Imagine in the company now, departments fighting for power, and you're not speaking that same language. So that is something else to be mindful of. It's a new learning experience. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of observation. But I will let you know a secret. You all have quite an advantage over anyone else because you're communication experts. You can look and you can see feedback and you can see if someone's getting annoyed, or you know how to talk through a difficult conversation because you're communication experts. So we find that we're, for the first time, working across departments, and also difficulty managing up and down, understanding the hierarchy, navigating office politics. So I have a couple of examples here. What this could look like. Actually, no. Let me quiz you first. So, if we know that we haven't had that experience in working across departments or working across levels, or not understanding what the office politics might be, how do you think that would manifest? What would that look like? Or how would that appear?
Like you might not have access to the documents that you need
Mhm.
from another department, or
Mhm.
there just be so much delayed.
Yeah, so things can get really delayed, not having access. What else? Are you working in harmony? Do you all understand each other? No. Mm-mm. No. So you hit the first one right there. So there could be some misunderstandings and delays on collaborative projects. Because in a group project here at Columbia, you should all know who's working on what, right? Not always so smooth out there in real world. So knowing that you're depending on somebody else for a part of the work, it is a different process. We also don't maybe realize that we might be stepping on someone's toes. I remember very clearly at one of my roles, and I started the communications department, but the chief creative person wanted all the writing to come from her team. Like, no, it's a different department. There was war, absolute war, because she thought the writing should come from her team. I thought this was my responsibility, and our managers were not getting involved to help us clean it up. We had to kind of duke it out ourselves and figure it out. And I'm glad I didn't go to my manager at the time, because these are things that, with enough awareness, we can and should try to figure out on our own. We also might miss out on opportunities if we don't understand either how we're being perceived or what are some of the unwritten rules. We might be disliked or distrusted or have that perception. Again, while I was at Cody, there was someone on the team, no one liked her because she put up her hand for everything. She always had something to say. She wasn't reading the room, and she wasn't understanding how she was being perceived by her teammates. And also a hesitancy to provide feedback or ask for guidance. So if we're not asking questions, we don't want to look stupid, we should get this on our own, I want to do it my way, I don't need to be micromanaged on this, I don't want my manager to think that I forgot or I wasn't paying attention, or maybe I did forget or I wasn't paying attention. But there's some hesitancy perhaps in asking for help. Something else, I'm not going to read this entire thing to you, but something else that this one particular student wasn't prepared for. And it was really, let me get to the important words, the power dynamics and organizational structure. This one I was surprised at, but it makes so much sense. When we're in the classroom, okay, what's the hierarchy? Okay, professor, student. Okay, not so hard. We have very defined rules. Class starts this time, ends at this time. Here's your assignments. And oh my goodness, I better not mess up an assignment date or change a rubric, because I know that that's like craziness. But we know what to expect. We know what the dynamics are. When we go into the working world, all of a sudden we have different levels of authority, delegation. So what I find out, so here, this again, just some of the words from that big long quote, there are people that you can't necessarily bypass. So we learn, okay, here's how you talk to the CEO, or here's how you talk to your boss. What we don't learn is, how do you talk to your boss's peer that's asking you for something? Well, I don't report to this person. So they're asking me for this, I'm not quite sure what to do with that. Or you have someone from another team asking you to do something that maybe it's not yours to do, or starting a project that should be in your department. So there's a lot of this figuring out, where we learn very concretely. Professor, student, come to class, this is when the assignment is due. The rules are not so they're not so strict, they're not so clear. Couple more. How are we doing? So are we doing okay?
A few minutes, yeah.
Okay, all right. So good writing, editing, and research skills. Of course, we know that. your calamity students. But struggling with presenting your own ideas and writing outside of an academic context. So I remember, Alma and Brittany, I remember very clearly when there was an assignment that I was giving, I said, I don't want any notations, I don't want any references, I want your own thoughts. This is not a research paper. And I've given up before, and people look at me like I have 3 heads. Say, what do you mean it's not a research paper? No. I don't want you to look at anyone else's thoughts. I want your thoughts. So we get so used to and very good at creating these academic papers. Forget about our own thoughts. And we forget what it's like. Okay, well just tell me what you think. Tell me why you think we should do this and give me your rationale for it. You're not going to stand up and present or have a presentation, or I hope not, with all of this research saying exactly why academically you think it's a good idea. So that's a muscle that we need to practice. How you create content and share your ideas outside of the classroom. I had someone who was very upset on my team because she told me she gave a presentation and she had maybe like 40 slides. I told her, too long, but you do you. Okay, just she wanted to manage it. And someone was looking through the deck and they weren't paying attention. And they said, all right, page 10, paragraph 2, can you tell us about that? And she was sputtering. She said, I didn't get through pages 1 through 9 yet. And I said, well, are you playing glad that they were so excited about what was on page 10, paragraph 2? And don't worry about the rest of the presentation. The only person that really cares about that is you. So that, foreign concepts. So that's something else that kind of shakes us up a little bit. We talked about this a little bit. We become adept at managing your work and due dates. However, when there are changing priorities, competing priorities, moving deadlines, or even worse, someone says, I need this tomorrow. You have it ready the next day? And then, we didn't end up using it. The meeting was moved to 2 weeks from now. All right? Ever have that happen? Yeah, okay. You can't take it personally. It's just how it works. But that's something that, again, and I still have to remind myself to not shame someone when that happens. But it happens. Again, different way of life, bridging that gap. Okay. Struggling with those competing priorities, changing priorities, competing projects, and moving deadline. Likely how it can make us feel, or how it can make, we're going to talk about how it makes us feel. As we feel, so we act. If we're feeling frustrated, we're going to show some frustration, right? If we're feeling overwhelmed, it shows in our work one way or the other. So it's really helpful, I think, to be mindful of how it may impact us. So as we're recalibrating to a new way of working, we can feel frustrated, we can feel angry, confused, overwhelmed, lack of flexibility, like, I need to go through these slides 1 through 9 before I get to 10, even though you want to talk about what's on slide 10. Let it go. Talk about what's on slide 10. Feeling disappointed or trouble adhering to someone else's schedule. So I've seen some team members really go into a tizzy, not knowing what to do with that. Okay, I see smiles. I hope like, oh yeah, I've done this before. Unfortunately, right? Questions so far? How are we doing? 2 minutes. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do, just because we don't have that much time. You're going to have this content, so I'm going to skip one of the case studies. And I am going to go to what to do with all this because I'd like to get to some questions. So just some recaps around us. Industry knowledge, we know that you'll get skills, you'll get experiences, doesn't mean you're going to be good to go on day 1, so be forgiving of yourself. For that, there's a huge learning curve. We put so much pressure on ourselves to know everything. There's no way of knowing everything. There's no way of knowing what goes on until you get there. Each job has its own unique characteristics and culture that you need to learn about. We talked about real-world timing, pressures and deadlines. Again, that structure that you have in Columbia may not happen, at the job. And also something else I found that was interesting was practicing leadership, again, managing up, down, and across, and all of the difficult messages that we're been delivering. We don't learn that here so much, right? We don't learn how to deliver something that's really challenging. So, I have 2 last slides before I open it up to Q&A. One is for your team, and one is for you. Knowing what we know now, how do you navigate through all of this? So for your team, give them the flexibility as best you can. Give them a voice. Give them opportunities to share their ideas, their inspirations. When you set the foundation for that, an open dialogue and open communication, you're going to get more questions. You're going to get more ideas. Give them the why. If you're telling them, put your phone away in the meeting, or tell them why they're doing it, tell them why, okay? Yes, I know, we're attached, it's second nature. I've learned over many years of teaching, I no longer take it very personally when someone glances at their phone. But how could it be perceived if someone's on their phone the entire time in the meeting? You're not paying attention, you're being disrespectful, you're not here. Okay, that's not how you want to appear. Wouldn't you want someone to tell you that? So rather than say, don't do this, give them the why. Because I've also found that when you explain the why, it helps them make the decision and good choices for themselves in the future. And you're not just kind of admonishing them. Helping them establish community, especially important in a remote or hybrid work environment. Give them access to peers, not just within their own team, but across teams. Cultivate the entrepreneurial environment. So, there's this itch. How many people want to create their own business? So look for projects and give them the room to be able to use those entrepreneurial skills. Helping them translate their knowledge to the real world, again, now that you know it's not easy. And giving the clear goals, expectations, and timelines. If I ever have to move a deadline, I explain why. And if you're asking for something by a certain date, this is my own 5 cents, but if you're asking for something I need it by Monday, make sure you really need it by Monday. Right? Otherwise, you start to lose trust, and they're not going to work so hard to get it to you by a certain time. And then schedule regular check-ins and give feedback. So, that poor young woman who was crying in my office on the first day, she didn't have feedback. No one talked to her. No one checked in with her. A check-in goes a very long way. Anything to add to this that you can think of for your team?
Positive reinforcement.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's part of the feedback.
It is, yes, of course. But we don't pay enough attention to that, do we? We're quick to say when something's not right or how to do something better. Positive reinforcement, really quickly. All right, so let's flip this around. Okay.
Just be approachable for any question.
Love it. How do you make yourself approachable?
Just be build a good relationship with the team members.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, excellent.
Yeah. What I've done is build a path to empathy, share challenges that I've had in their position, say hey, I know that you missed the deadline for this, it's happened to me, and we learn from this, and you can come to me when you have that issue, and we bring it in so that you humanize leadership in a way that allows them to think that I can, 1, be like that, and 2, there's just empathy.
You know what's so magical about that? You're saying, I understand. I've been there. So I did it in this presentation. Hey, I've been doing what I do for 30 years. I still run into this. Oh, I didn't know that you couldn't go to this person because this manager hates this one. And I didn't know you had to spend all your budget before they took it away in Q4. Okay, you better believe I'm going to spend my budget now. But telling someone I understand, I see you, I've been in your shoes, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Magical. Great contributions. All right, so flipping this around, and how do we advocate for ourselves? Because many of us are Gen Z. Do we recognize some of the traits or some of the insights? Do you see? You know, have you experienced that? How did we do with my polling? Yeah? Am I way off base? Okay, good. I told you I take silence as agreement, so we're going to take it as agreement. Okay, so how do we, knowing this knowledge about ourselves, or perhaps how others see us, how do we advocate for ourselves? Number one, we need to understand our own work hour and location expectations, especially if you're starting a new job. When they say, oh, it's hybrid, be real clear. What does that mean? Is that 4 days a week? Is that 5 days a week? Is that 3 days a week? Is that 2 days a week? Is it 2 days set a week? Can I choose them or not? We're being really, really clear, but also knowing that asking too much about that to someone who has never worked remotely before the pandemic, that could be frustrating to someone that's never experienced that again, because they don't have that same, I understand. This is what so many young professionals, this is all they know. Offer your opinions, but read the room. See when it is appropriate. Make sure, just like we do in a classroom, you're not talking over anyone. You're not doing all of the talking, but you're contributing that. But offer your opinion. Ask questions and show interest. If you're not sure how what you're doing contributes to something else, there's a fine line with appearing defensive and interested. Saying, okay, well, I'm going to get this done, and tell me how does this work into the project? Ask those questions. You're showing interest in the outcome. Make the point to create connections with others. And challenge yourself creatively to take that initiative. So basically, everything I'm sharing to do for your team, this is advocating for yourself. Use knowledge as the foundation for the real world, and recognize that the excellent education, what am I saying so myself, that you get here, and everything that you do here, it might look different out there. And it might have different application, it might have different vernacular, a different way of doing things. So be flexible with it. I always say, I'm giving you tools. It's not paint by numbers. It's we're giving you the paint, we're giving you the canvas and the paintbrush. You're going to figure out how best to apply it. Ask. If you're not sure, ask for those clear goals. Ask for the expectations and ask for the timelines. The most underused question that everyone should know when you're getting everything thrown at you is, okay, what shall I prioritize? Okay, you're going to save sanity for yourself, and you're going to manage expectations for yourself and your team. And then schedule those regular check-ins and ask for feedback. If you're not getting the FaceTime with your manager, ask for it. But be respectful of time and make it very purposeful. I did it really